I need, okay.
Amazing. Hello, everyone. Hi, irreplaceable people. Today, I'm so lucky. We are so lucky to have with us Christopher Connors. Christopher, hi, how are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me, Pascal.
So, Chris, we'll talk about emotional intelligence, social skills. We all know that in a future that will be increasingly tech-driven, where the value lies in terms of the skills and the abilities that we need to build are those that are the most human ones. And one of the key human skills is about understanding and interacting with other humans. This is something that technology will never be able to do as well as we do, or at least as authentically as we can do it. Uh, and I would love to hear from an expert from you, like you. How can we boost to the maximum? How can we build those social skills so that we create a maximum synergy, a maximum complementarity with technology? So thanks for agreeing to be with us. And
Yeah.
yeah, if you have any framework, any tips, we are all looking for that. Thank you.
I'd love to start. I would say start with, I call it my connection success formula. And it begins with empathy. And I say empathy plus candor plus authenticity plus assertiveness equals victory. And
Okay.
so I'll actually go in reverse order and just really say that, for me, to be truly human is it's to initiate, it's to be proactive, it's to seek, I think one of the ways that we become better as communicators and better at building relationships, we start with being a great listener, but we start with seeking to initiate conversations, and we can begin that by asking somebody open-ended questions. We can share pieces of ourselves. We can personalize the conversation. One way to be assertive is to do what's called individualizing the conversation and personalizing it, to get to know someone, as you said, as a human being first before maybe jumping into work and business. Authentically, showing up as ourselves, the famous Oscar Wilde quote, right? Be yourself, everyone else is already taken. So just sharing the pieces of your personality that make you you. It could be having a sense of humor. It just could be the different quirks of what make you who you are, but showing up authentically as yourself, being candid, sharing more pieces of yourself, sharing pieces about what motivate you, what excites you. It could be a story. We share experiences through storytelling, and then empathy, right? I come back to kind of where I started with, being a great listener first. Communication begins with listening. The more that we are curious and we seek to share and show an interest in someone else, and we let someone know that we care about them by listening and by following along and by continuing to support that person, that success formula. Empathy, candor, authenticity, and assertiveness is a great place to begin.
Amazing, amazing. Of course, we would love to see how we can train ourselves and how we can be better at those different points. But before that, you are an instructor on LinkedIn. Just to get a little bit to know about you, so you've released one course, is it, or several courses on LinkedIn?
On LinkedIn Learning, I recorded my course last year in California, and it's been on LinkedIn Learning now. It's hard to believe, for 6 months, leading with emotional intelligence.
Yes, and it's very popular. Yeah.
Yeah, well, thank you. So leading with emotional intelligence, it's done very, very well. And then my newest book, called The Champion Leader, just came out last month. And so I've written 3 books largely about emotional intelligence. And I like to just even begin. Sometimes people say, well, what is emotional intelligence? And I say emotional intelligence is the ability to recognize, understand, and manage our emotions. And it's the ability to recognize, understand, and influence the emotions of another person. As it was originally defined, emotional intelligence is broken into 5 pillars: self-awareness, self-management, empathy, motivation, and social skill. So I know a lot of what we're talking about is social skill, I gave you my success formula, and I like to break it down. I say connecting the
Sorry, that
core.
my definition of social skill was broader than that. For me, it's embedding all this. But that, so just don't get me wrong. What we are really thinking about in this framework of the irreplaceable framework is really about being better humans in the sense of connecting better with others, and yeah. So empathy, collaboration, communication, anything that makes a human connect better with another human. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I when I think of social skill, I'm thinking of the communication. I'm thinking of the relationship building. I'm thinking of, I use this example a lot from coaching work that I've done. I've worked with a lot of executives over the years, and the most common feedback that I get from these 360 or 360-degree assessments that are done, where they're gathering feedback from all kinds of people in their organization. What I most commonly find is employees will come back and say, I wish that the leader, or I wish that this manager, I wish this person took more time to get to know us as human beings. Like, I wish they actually personalized the relationship and got to know us better as a person. But those same people, I have found in feedback, also say, I wish he or she spent more time sharing about themselves with us. Like, they want to get to know. So what I have found, what the neuroscience shows, and what we find in human to human connection is that there really is an innate human desire to want to socialize and to want to connect and to want to interact. And I think that sometimes what I have noticed in business, and especially, is we can lose that. We can lose the importance of building relationships first on a more human and personal level, and we just try to strictly get down to business. But what I have found happens in that regard is that it can only work for so long. People want to feel more connected, and I that's what I think of when I think of social skill as well. Is that it's that desire to feel connected that makes a big difference.
I love your frameworks and I love your thinking. Very insightful. So now we know what is important. What are the key frameworks that you've been working on? How can we build on top of this? How can we be better connected with others, or with our practices or tips? Or
I think that I really do begin with active listening.
okay,
And what I have found, and I've been very fortunate to work with some really, really successful leaders and CEOs, they listen first. I've had people reach out to me that I knew were, God, this is an incredibly successful person. This is someone that's, globally recognized and known. And they were more interested in getting to know me at first. And I thought, you've got to be kidding me. I'm nobody compared to them. But
yes,
it's a common thread that I have found in very, very successful leaders, entrepreneurs, individuals, is that they're great listeners because they're learners, right? So think about it. In order to be an effective communicator and to really connect with people, it begins with listening. So it's listening without distraction. We talked about AI, we talked about technology, but putting that stuff down and just immersing with full presence in the moment, asking open-ended questions. So what do I mean by that? Instead of just saying, you're having a good day, right? Or assuming a yes or no answer, we might just say, Pascal, tell me how your weekend was, or what are some of the new projects that you're working on? How's your family doing? Those are questions that are going to
yes,
get you to open up. But I have found as well, really great listeners, they use mnemonics. There's things that they remember about, just that person that they were talking to. It could be where they were from, or they described a childhood friend. But it's being an active listener in that conversation. I come back to empathy. That's where empathy begins. I share this Theodore Roosevelt quote a lot in my work. People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And I think I like to use that in a term that I say, make your passion their passion, make their passion your passion. We're all energized and excited. And I know AI is a huge passion for you, right? So the more that other people are going to see that, but the more that other people can share what they're interested in and passionate about, and the more that you choose to connect with that in an authentic way, that goes a long way toward building empathy and social skill and connection and bringing us closer together.
That's amazing. So those are two tips that we can use in any time during our daily lives.
I really come back to active listening, open-ended questions, showing curiosity, showing passionate care for another person on a human level, showing a passionate interest and care for things that they're interested in. And so communication obviously begins with listening. It's the art of being able to ask certain questions, but I mentioned to you before about individualization. Well, how do we do that? I start here. I say, I don't care whether I'm speaking to the CEO or if I walk into a building, whether I'm speaking to the person that greets me at the door when I walk in. I'm going to treat everybody with the same values: kindness, courtesy, respect, honesty, integrity. But we individualize. I know you mentioned that you have some children, and I do as well. Like, I'm going to speak different, even with my children. I'm going to speak different to my oldest child than I speak to my youngest child. Like, I'm trying to connect with everybody that I speak with on where they are, and that to me is what empathy and social skill are really about. I'm trying to connect with you and meet you where you're at. That could be your topic of interest. That could be investing in getting to know who you are as a person. That could be a shared experience that we've had, or topic like AI, or topic like emotional intelligence that we are passionate about. I'm going to calibrate the questions that I ask you, how I listen to you, the words that I say. I'm going to prepare. So another thing that I say to people to do to become a better communicator, prepare. Do the homework in advance. Even for this interview, I thought about the things that I wanted to say in relationship to talking about social skill and why it's so important in how we build relationships. So prepare for when you meet with someone. Do some, research on who they are. Get to know them. Think about the questions you want to ask. Think about the pieces of yourself that you want to share. And that's one last thing to share with you about individualization, is that I'm very big on humanizing the relationships that we have, getting to know someone, maybe more about their family or who they are as a person, where they're from, experiences that have shaped their lives. We get to decide what we choose to share with someone else. If I want to share about my family, if I want to share about a childhood memory or a topic, or I get to decide what those things are. What do I want to let people in on about who I am? And how can I tailor that to the person that I'm speaking with to form and maximize that connection as best as I can?
Excellent. So your point here is identifying in the other person what could resonate from your experience, your story, and start this connection, basically. It's about connecting two minds together, and nothing else better than being on similar experiences or similar shared experiences. And
Absolutely. And I'm just going to say, in the term, think of a term that I'll throw out there. It's like authentically resonating. You can still very much be your authentic self and resonate with someone else in a way that connects, right? We think about it, all of us, what makes us human, our experiences, our passions, our talents, our skills. And I don't know about you. I just, from recognizing who you are, Pascal, and your books and the topics that you're interested in, I would imagine that your experiences, skills, passions, and talents are in the hundreds and thousands, right? So we all have different pieces of our personalities, right? So it may not always come out in the work that I do, but humor is a big part of my personality. My time with my children, my time with my family. I was a college athlete. I coached sports. So there's millions of different pieces of our personalities, and it's kind of like, I think of social skill and empathy as this dance. What are we choosing to let people in on? How are we going all in to get to know someone else and to authentically show that we're just genuinely interested in getting to know that person? Because that's going to help us to build friendship. It's going to help us to build camaraderie. And it's going to help us from, building business relationships to really get to connect with someone and feel an authentic, resonance with that.
that's very insightful. So we talked a lot about how do we share about ourselves to be connected with the others, and so that the others share with us. But it's, I think the key issue that we all face is, how do we interpret, how do we understand what is coming back to us from the others? And very often, all the issues, all the miscommunication come from that. We don't understand. We shared something from us or from our story, and what we get back, we don't understand it well, and we will then react in a way that will create a miscommunication. And how can we make sure that we understand better what is coming at us? And it's probably trying to find a way to be more objective in the way we understand things, and maybe understanding our own biases, so that we can kind of eliminate them from our
I think it's, I go back to where I started, and I think we, it's always eliminating any distractions, right? In the same way, okay, I have my phone right next to me here, but we're doing an interview. I'm not looking at my phone. I'm not allowing any other outside distractions. I'm focused 100% on what you're saying. Another thing that I say to people that makes us better at social skill and empathy is, don't be thinking, I try to say this as a coach. I'm like, I'm not trying to think of the next question until after I have listened to what you have said and processed everything that you said. How could I may have curiosities. There's a lot of things that I might want to ask you, Pascal. You've been very successful. You've had an interesting career, but I'm fully locked into that moment. And it's a hard thing to kind of explain in words, but I would just say, listen with full presence, be fully locked into that moment. And my answer to the question that you asked just a minute ago was, just be ready, ask clarifying questions, right? I mean, think about that. We were taught when we were school children, if you have a question, raise your hand. If you don't understand something. I think, unfortunately, sometimes there's this, untrue thinking that if we choose to ask a follow-up question, it's demonstrating that we weren't listening, or it's demonstrating a lack of intelligence. And I actually think it's the exact opposite. I really have found some of the most successful people. I'm thinking of one individual in particular, a gentleman that I'd coached. He's a co-chairman of one of the largest talent agencies in the world. And he would always ask hundreds and hundreds. He would ask me so many questions, clarifying questions and clarifying questions. And he was gaining information as he went to be more informed. And I think the more that we can, if I don't clearly understand something, I'm going to ask clarifying, specific questions, and then I'm going to parrot back what I heard to make sure that it's correct. Like, that's another technique in social skill. Parrot back, or say the words back to someone that they said. Ensure acceptance. Ensure that that's been, that you received it the right way. And a lot of psychology and research find that when we do that, someone else, it validates that what we heard, or what they said, we listened to and we accepted it. And so I often say, ask clarifying questions. Just really seek first to understand. Don't be ready to ask the next question, the split second that you've asked the first question. And I think that if you're only listening for the purpose of asking the next question, you're missing the point entirely. Being a fully engaged listener is how you build a relationship.
I love it. How I was thinking how you talked about self-awareness, our capacity in the emotional sphere. We talked about understanding better the other, but you talked also about self-awareness. Can you tell us more about this, and how can we know better ourselves to interact better with the others, and how?
Absolutely. Well, I'll go back to the definition that I gave before, generally, of emotional intelligence. It's the ability to recognize, understand, manage our emotions. To me, if you look at that definition, that's what self-awareness is: the ability to recognize and understand our emotions, the stimuli, the things that are coming at us, our environment. It's our ability to kind of process, to recognize, to understand, to make sense of everything that we experience. But self-awareness is a lot more than just that, right? It's how we perceive others to see us. I would imagine I'm doing that with you now, and you're doing it back with me, right? So that's another part of, that ends up being of social skill, is that when we're interacting with someone, we're always perceiving how we are being received in return. How is that other person reacting to us, or when we're listening to them, are we able to recognize that they feel confident and comfortable and that they feel well received? So it's that perception of how others are perceiving us. And the other part of self-awareness, which is I really talk a lot about in my new book, The Champion Leader, it's feedback. We cannot only be informed by our own recognition and understanding. It
Yes.
comes from the feedback of other people. And so I think the proactive, self-aware individual is someone that on a regular and frequent basis is courageous and unwavering in asking for feedback on
Wow.
performance, or how they were perceived, or how they're doing. So those are the three really big parts of self-awareness to me. If you're looking to focus more on building your own self-awareness on your own time, I have this on my website. I call it the self-awareness game plan. And it starts with passion. So I say passion, values, your core values of what make you a human being, purpose, why you're doing what you're doing, how you define success for yourself, and then having goals that you set. The things that I've added onto it over time are your strengths and the skills that you have and the skills that you want to acquire. But that base of intimately knowing what energizes you, what you're passionate, what you're motivated about, what is the purpose of why you're doing what you're doing. And I think for you, it's very clear, right? You're trying to deliver this message of AI and these important human-centered skills to the world of creativity and critical thinking. And so knowing who we are, knowing why we're doing what we're doing, the values that ground us, and having clear goals and defining success, like all these things that enable us to know and operate, because the reason that I think self-awareness is so important, it leads to self-confidence.
Very
When
interesting.
we recognize and understand things clearly, when we're clearly able to perceive our environment around us, when we're getting feedback on who we are and we already know well who we are, like we're acting, behaving, leading, being with more confidence. And when I come back to social skill, think about it. The people that resonate most, the people that we oftentimes feel best about and connecting with, are people that really present with a lot of confidence and a lot of self-awareness.
That was very insightful. That's priceless. Thanks a lot, Chris. Um, Before we end up, we have 2 more minutes. Can you tell us about you, where we can find about your work? If you want to dig further into those topics, where can we find more information?
Thank you, Pascal. Yeah, well, as you mentioned before, my LinkedIn learning course, it's called Leading with Emotional Intelligence, and that's available on the LinkedIn Learning site. And you can find me on LinkedIn, Christopher D. Connors. And then my newest book, The Champion Leader, it's a lot of what I've shared with you today is from the heart and soul of thousands and thousands of hours of coaching conversations that I've had with some of the best organizations and best leaders in the world over the last 10 years. And you can find more about my book on Amazon. And then my website, my name is Chris D. Connors, and that's Connors. But you can find me on Google, Christopher D. Connors, and my website is chrisdconnors.com.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Chris. Thanks
Thank you.
for spending some time with us and for giving us so much insight in such a short amount of time. That was very effective.
Thank you. Well, I greatly appreciate your time, Pascal, and I really appreciate what you're doing to share with so many people in your community. And I wish you the very best.
Thank you, Chris, and to the community. So see you soon with the next episode of Insightful Discussions. Thank you.